Welcome back to the Fort Walton Beach Chamber of Commerce Business Forum. I'm Nick Chubb, 2018 Chair of the Board, and with me in this segment is Nathan Boyles, County Commissioner. Nathan, welcome.
Good morning, Nick. Great to be here.
Well, glad you could carve some time out and join us.
Absolutely. Always happy to do so.
Let's go back in history just a little bit. Tell the folks, about your district, some coverage, and something new. How about one thing that you like best about being a county commissioner?
Oh, I love everything about being a county commissioner, Nick. So I have District 3. I've been elected, I'm in the middle of my second term now, so going on 6 years as county commissioner. District 3 is what I lovingly refer to as the gerrymandered district. It's the only district that goes north and south in Okaloosa County. So you've got 3 south end commissioners, you've got 1 north end commissioner, and then you've got my district, which spans both. And so I run all the way from the Alabama line, communities like Blackman coming all the way down through Baker, Holt, Milligan, and then all the way down into a bit of Niceville, Valparaiso, and portions of incorporated Fort Walton Beach.
Quite the drive.
It is, yeah. No, it's good. I get lots of miles riding the district. In fact, this morning I was up near the Alabama line shortly after 7, looking at some road projects up that way. So
are tax dollars at work?
Yes, and that's probably a good segue into talking about tax dollars. One of the items that I think is good to focus on right now, transitioning back a couple of months, is the growing partnership that we're seeing in our county, amongst our cities in our county. I believe we're kind of moving into a period where everybody is pulling in the same direction. We've seen some flexibility with our tourism development dollars that came out of the legislature over the last year,
right.
And some really positive direction.
Yeah, it was very refreshing, and hopefully, it kind of goes back to my bridging theme for my term. Not that I had anything to do with it, but the point is we need to bridge the different agencies, the municipalities,
Sure.
the county, and private citizens to get on the same page. And we're all working for one Okaloosa County.
That's right.
We're not hopefully working for our own individual agenda, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it was very refreshing to see that. And the county has asked the chamber to step up and try to help promote the sales tax initiative that you will be placing on the ballot this November. And we have been working for months on trying to get some background information and work on some basic points and meeting with different department heads.
Sure.
Just met with Sheriff Ashley. So, we're well on our way to working on that campaign, and it'll start rolling out as we get closer to election time. But why don't we talk about some of the things that you feel, or the county commission feels, or maybe I guess we need to narrow it down to Nathan's opinion, of what the most critical needs are facing us from an infrastructure perspective.
Sure, and absolutely. If I can, first I want to note that Okaloosa County, we have statistically, we have very low property taxes. That's a good thing. We like that. We want to keep it that way. If you compare us to the rest of the state, we're low. If you compare us to the nation, we're low. And so we do pretty good spreading those dollars as far as we can.
Absolutely.
And I think that we don't want to change that dynamic. We want to continue to be a low property tax county. Of course, we have to have the revenue to provide the infrastructure that our citizens expect. And I don't think there's any silver bullet that's out there. And I really think it comes down to a blending of sources, and going back again to the tourism development tax, being able to use a portion of those dollars for infrastructure was critically important, and that will help us. But there are limitations. There's only so much money there. There are restrictions on where the district currently exists and where those dollars can be spent. Other sources that are out there are Triumph. Some of the restore monies that are flowing, both of those are good sources. They're competitive sources, and again, they're not going to solve all of our problems.
And they like to see skin in the game.
Exactly. That's right. That's a critical component, that local government has to come forward with a match for dollars that are going to come from those sources. And so at the end of the day, it's really about, I think, blending the sources of revenue to provide these critical pieces of infrastructure, and doing so in a way that everybody has a fair piece of that. Property taxes is terribly unfair. That burden continues to be placed on a narrower set of shoulders more heavily because of the various exemptions that get passed by the legislature and brought forward. There'll be one on the ballot this fall, actually, which will further narrow the number of folks that pay, increasing ultimately the amount that group that's left has to pay. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at broad and diversified sources of revenue, and the sales tax is a way to do that. And sales tax is limited, of course, to infrastructure. We have to spend those dollars on infrastructure, and so you can be assured that those dollars won't be squandered on any types of things that you can't feel and touch.
It's not personnel.
That's right, exactly. And I'm a bricks and sticks kind of guy. I like to see things getting built, and so that's what these dollars can be used for. Broad categories are going to be your public safety, your water quality, and stormwater, and then your road infrastructure.
Correct.
And I think that keeps us focused on core responsibilities of government. And I think if we keep that focus, that those dollars will be very well and wisely spent in Okaloosa County.
Well, we of course have, in meeting with all the department heads and trying to get a wish list of projects pulled together, and I really shouldn't call it a wish list, it's more of a demand need scenario of things that have been let go so long.
Sure.
We know the lists are extensive. I don't believe it's been presented yet to the full commission for approval, but I know we've worked with staff on that, and the list is quite extensive.
Sure.
And there are going to be projects that don't get funded for a while.
Sure. Because
there are just so many of them. But the bottom line is there are some very major areas that need to be addressed, as you've just pointed out here. And I think what we need to do is help educate the consumer, being our constituents and the residents of Okaloosa County, as to why they exist, as far as what the shortfall is, if you will, for the infrastructure, and what it's going to take dollar-wise to fix that.
Sure.
And you greatly pointed out the fact that we can use some dollar matching, going after some different grants, going after different buckets of money from Triumph, Restore, whomever, and that takes a funding source on our part.
That's right.
And what better way than a consumption tax to let some of our visitors and tourists contribute to that, because we all know, because we've lived here, we lived through summer traffic season, we know what the load is on the infrastructure. Talked with Larry Ashley about the load on public services, and we're basically living with a 200,000 population and services designed for that, trying to deal with something 2 to 4 times that amount in peak season.
That's right.
And you can only stretch that so far before it snaps.
That's absolutely a good point. And I add to that, we effectively run two separate counties as far as administration goes, because Eglin separates us, and we're certainly happy they're here. But if you think about just public works crews, we effectively have to run crews north and south because it's 30 minutes in between when traffic's light, and so we have to duplicate many of those services. That adds to the cost. And an important word about our visitors that come here, even our local visitors, if they're from Walton County, Escambia County, Panama City, Bay County, they pay sales tax above 6% to support their local needs. When they travel to Okaloosa County, they put a burden on our infrastructure here, and they get to suspend having to pay any contribution because we do not collect any of that local option sales tax. And so really, if you think about it, when we leave and we go to those other locations, we're helping them pay for their infrastructure. When they come here, they're not helping us. And so it just makes good sense. And one other point I wanted to hit was the gas tax. Folks often ask about the gas tax, and shouldn't that be paying for all of our road infrastructure? And the answer is probably it should, but the way that gas tax is structured, it doesn't increase over time. It's fixed at a penny, but if you think about when fuel prices go up, one, people buy less gas, which means less gas tax, and two, the cost of building roads goes up, because the cost of building roads is directly tied to the cost of fuel. Whether it's the plastic in the pipe, whether it's the fuel that's in the asphalt, whether it's the cost of the trucks, the diesel fuel to run all that material back and forth and run that heavy equipment, it's all tied to the cost of fuel. So as revenues fall, when you talk about road construction, costs increase, and so they run in the opposite direction from one another, and you simply are left with a major shortfall in the middle.
Well, and shortfall could sum everything up as to where we sit with funding for the critical need projects we have. And with that, our time is up. So Nathan, I really appreciate you joining us today. And you said something that sticks in my mind. It just makes sense. And folks, that's what we're talking about with regard to the sales tax. It just makes sense. Thank you for joining us. Nathan Boyles, County Commissioner, Nick Chubb, Chairman of the Board, thank you again.